This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest that I got to meet last month at the Fantasy Football Expo. His enthusiasm and excitement was off the charts that week. You can find him at TBQ Sports and on the Fantasy Football Show on YouTube. It's Nicolas Wilcox. Welcome to the show, my man.
Appreciate you being here. Doc, it was fun just getting to know you and overall to have this interview. And, it's just a pleasure to be here. Every day is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So that's what I like to say.
It's a beautiful saying. That's a good one for sure. And you're right. I mean, the expo was a ton of fun, but you seriously, I kept calling you the MVP of the expo because you and your pal, man, every time I saw you, like you guys were just having the best time, such good times at the expo. But you guys were certainly taking it all in and had a ton of gratitude. So it was awesome to see. But obviously for listeners and viewers that might be unfamiliar with what you're doing, can you let us know what TBQ Sports is and then tell us about the Fantasy Football?
TBQ is an awesome platform on YouTube, TBQ Sports, and we just talk about all things football. That's our show platform when it comes to just talking the ins and outs, X and O's of breakdowns and looking at different teams and how they were. We do draft process and all these other things as well throughout the season as far as football goes. So it usually doesn't really stop too often. We might take a 2-month break, but it's about it. For the Fantasy Football Show, me and my guy Johnny, we overall started this about a couple months ago because it just made sense for us to come together and make something happen. We were both in a space where it was just time to, bring our energies together, bring our ideas together. Me and John met each other last year in Boston for Scott Fish Bowl 13. And, Scott Fish, by the way, puts out a great product every year and always finds a way to do something crazy in terms of how he runs, Scott Fish Bowl, and what a great cause, by the way, as well. So a lot to overall just take in general for that event too. And that's where I met John and we stayed in contact, and it was just time for us to, come together and do a great fantasy football show. And that's what we do. So check us out. It's on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. So the Fantasy Football Show on YouTube, and we're also on Sunday 10:30 a.m. Eastern, where we talk about bets, pick'ems, props, last minute trade advice if you need it. On Tuesdays we talk about more of the waiver wire show, so that's my plug for that. But other than that, yeah, I mean, those are just the places that you guys can find me at.
I love it. Yeah, no, you guys are a great pairing. Clear chemistry. It's fun to see see people out in public and see that chemistry. Not to mention just like how you guys do it on the show. It's awesome. Now, obviously, you're a big fan of football. Good, big sports fan, I imagine. Where did it all begin for you? When were you a big sports fan growing up?
Man, well, it all started back in like 98, 99, where I saw a kick return from Chad Morton of the Jets. And I was just hooked. That's where football started. That's where all the backyard football became about. It's where I started playing football, and that's how things went. My favorite person to overall like just emulate constantly on a football field was Curtis Martin. So that's how I became a Jets fan.
What other teams did you like? You're a Yankees fan, right?
Yankees fan, big time. Obviously, Derek Jeter was someone that I got a chance to watch and actually, just literally watch throughout his whole career. And it was something obviously special because I loved playing shortstop. Didn't play too much baseball enough growing up, but anytime I would love to play shortstop and love to play the infield. And Derek Jeter was one of the best when it came to contact hitting, also when it came to fielding. And in terms of being a captain, like that was great just to watch the World Series that the Yankees were starting to build. And from that regard, for basketball, basketball, I've always just loved more players than teams. I've always liked a good story. I've always tried to root for the underdog per se. So back in the day, I used to have a nice, clean, alternate Mike Bibby jersey. Like, do you remember the black? Do you remember the black and like light blue jersey? Oh, yeah. I gotta get another one of those. But that was something I wore to school constantly. You a Kings fan? I'm like, no, I just love the jersey.
Hey, man, that's I love it.
And then Chris Webber. So it's like, yeah, I wasn't a Kings fan per se, but I did root for them. I ended up loving the Pistons per se.
Okay.
Back in the day as well with the Wallace, Ben and Rashid, Chauncey
Yeah.
Billups. Like I love that team that ended up winning the championship that year in 04. Like it was like Chauncey Billups was like the person that I was like I emulate on the basketball court too. So gritty defensive player, would be a point guard when scoring when needed to. So it came around for sure when it came to some of my earlier sports memories in terms of sports.
Yeah, well, so what's the worst loss you ever experienced as a sports fan?
Well, there's a couple. there's a lot, right? I honestly think I would say probably the ones I didn't get over the easiest were the Jets teams that ended up going to the conference championship games and were this close for making the Super Bowl and couldn't make it happen. The teams that we ran into ultimately won the championship too. So it was like, what can you do? Actually, I take that back. The Colts team we ran into in that conference championship, Saints actually won that one. But in terms of that Steelers team that we know we had an opportunity to beat, just couldn't make it happen. So in my era of the Jets, that's probably one of the tougher losses in terms of that goes. The other ones, the ones where I've constructed great fantasy football championship teams and either get bounced first round or get bounced in the championship round, which is even worse. Or
that's the worst.
You get bounced right before the championship game. So
and you would have won the championship game.
And I would have won.
You do those calculations every time, right?
Always.
I love it. How about your favorite sports moment of all time?
Yeah, I saw that question. That was definitely tough. I guess I would say this really hurts me to say, but I called this moment. And like really, no one was. When I was at the bar with people, they're like, "Oh, that's not going to happen. Game's over." The Patriots come back on the Falcons. I called this. I took the spread there. I didn't call them. They were going to come back to win the game. I just knew that game wasn't over.
Yeah.
It turns out, hate the Patriots, but they won the dang championship. But you can't. It's one of the best moments I think I've ever seen in terms of like a huge comeback or whatever. And unfortunately, it's the Patriots, which is again back when you're a Jets fan, you kind of expect these things to happen. So
yeah.
What you gonna do?
Yeah, spectacular game for sure. Obviously, everyone's gonna remember that one. So when along the way did you discover fantasy sports?
So what happened with me was I was back in high school. So this is like 07, 08. I just started doing free leagues on Yahoo. I went back on when I saw this question on the queue, I was like, oh man, I gotta go back to see what teams I had constructed because I was like, oh man, I had some decent finishes, but I had some terrible finishes as well. So I looked at one of my teams. I had Matt Castle as a quarterback. I was like, good Lord. What was I doing back then?
You a late round quarterback there.
Literally. Clinton Portis I had back then too, though, obviously. So, Lavernius Coles. I was like, when he was flip-flopping between the Jets and the Redskins at the time.
Yeah.
So it was just like so interesting just to go back and look back.
Oh yeah, fun to reminisce on those old fantasy teams for sure.
Totally. My wins started coming more like maybe like 4 years after that. So it took me a while because I just did free leagues and public leagues while I was in school and not paying attention to class, trying to find something else to pay attention to, get my back way into the servers so that, because they would block it on my school website. But I was like, let me just get around this.
I love it. Do you remember whose content you consumed back in the day?
So back in the day, I didn't really start consuming anyone's content until maybe about when I started diving into the DFS side of my career. So that was 2014, 2015. And some of the guys I actually got a chance to meet this past at the expo, I watched their content for years. The JJ Zacharyasons, the Rich Rebars, Marcus Grants, I got to meet all of them. It was just so not only humbling, but also just this is not to say this is it, but it's also man, I've seen your stuff for years. I've seen you come up into what you're doing now. And it's just not a surreal moment, but like a phenomenal moment to be like in the presence and like literally whenever I'm having these conversations, it's like I'm literally having my own podcast with them. I told that to JJ.
Yeah.
I was like,
No.
are we having a podcast right now based on how back and forth we're going?
Oh, funny. Yeah, no, I think it is surreal. It's weird. You to think, back in the day, I'm consuming this, this content, and all of a sudden I'm standing there with them, right? And yeah, it's fun. It's a fun thing. The Expo is definitely a good time. So with fantasy, what hooked you? What was it that you loved initially?
I think what happened was for me, it took, like I said, it took a while for me because all I did was free league. So it wasn't like I didn't really know anyone that was like doing it on a regular basis or just like had that interest. So it was like my own little like personal hobby that like really no one knew about in a sense because it was like it wasn't as in your face as it is today. But yeah, like when I finally started a league with some friends of mine from high school, and that's the league I not only care about most, but I stick it to them when I win, and I get pissed off when I lose.
I love it. Yeah, you got to have that home league for sure. When was that started?
Probably, so we've done a couple of iterations of the league since, but we started like right after college, I think for me is when we like actually like got it together and we got serious about doing it on a regular basis. And the shit talking and all that oh goodness, like we remember when I beat you in the championship game a couple of years back. It's like, yeah, you haven't been back there since, huh?
Yeah. Any fun traditions or anything like that with
Oh
the
my
league?
gosh, so we always have like the loser, the loser of the loser, of the league. Like we've had some interesting punishments, hot wings to dressing up like a clown, walking around the mall. This year we got the loser of our league has to wear a kick me sign and walk around the mall.
That's fantastic. No, that makes fantasy leagues a lot more fun and engaging and competitive because you do not want to get last place, right?
No. And I have to say, out of all the times we've done this league, I haven't had it once. So
keep that streak going.
Literally.
So who's your biggest rival in fantasy that you can think of?
I gotta say, like, biggest rivalries always stem from year because sometimes it can literally be just like I'm chilling in a league and I'm not really saying much to anybody because it's like I'm so in my own zone. But there's always like my friends from high school will always have that bit of rivalry whenever we set up. It's like draft season when we're drafting. We cannibalize each other. Like the keeper league we have, we always cannibalize each other because everybody knows everybody's research for the most part, like who's going where, what's going what. So where's your advantage, right? So based on like rivalry, like my buddy Josh, my buddy Jordan, like my buddy Tim, like those are the guys and then Josh's brother Matt and his brother Michael, like those are the guys that literally I'm always going whenever I want to face them. I always want to beat their ass. Always. Because I'm not going to hear the end of it if I lose to them or if I don't make the playoffs and they just talk smack or whatever. I'll never hear the end of it. They'll take one thing and just run with it.
Nice. Now, do you have favorite settings or formats in fantasy?
Favorite settings for me is I still love a good home league. My favorite setting right now is if I'm going to do a home league, I love doing not only a 12 team, but also it's like doing the fab budget because that's such a great equalizer when it comes to strategically planning for like what it is that you might want to do on a week-to-week basis. The waiver system's fine. It's just not my jam anymore, really. So it's something where it's like I've realized this year I'm just not in love with at all. And I really love fab budgets because it just creates that extra edge for the people that are paying attention, the people who are diving in more statistically, and again, grinding. Like I like being part of leagues that everybody is looking to be competitive all the time. I don't like a grandma league. I don't like dominating a grandma league. I just don't feel satisfied. I don't feel I don't get the good feels when I win those things because it's like the only reason why I won is because I stashed all the good players on my bench. I was able to rotate them all year long.
Yeah, everybody needs a good league with people that are competitive. It sounds like you got a great one when it comes to all those rivals that you mentioned because if you got a league that's stacked with people that are going to make it fun, obviously it's gonna be much more rewarding when you win it all for sure. So when did you decide to dive in to creating content. What's your background with that?
Well, for me, background for me was, I did communication when I was in college, and I did sports management. So what I did was, after I started doing, just writing sports articles for different, affiliates. One in particular is Fox Sports, where I was able to go to the Pro Bowl several times. I was able to interview now, decent, high profile athletes. Again, just like the Le'Veon Bells and Adam Thielen and Antonio Brown at the time, like, just Drew Brees. Like there was a lot of people I was able just to, go one-on-one with when it comes to just like where their thinking was and all that. And obviously had some fun questions and stuff doing that too. And that was just my background. So when I dived into more of the content space, I was kind of already in it. It was just more like the opportunity to do fantasy more on a, on my terms, freelance wise or whatever, just always looking for opportunities. And I never close any doors. So it's more about just always being free flow, like water when it comes to this space. So for me, it's like I've always talked fantasy, whether people would ever have a question or whatever on Twitter. But I just started now just to kind of just do the YouTube channel with my guy John, because it was just something that just felt right. Like you were talking about, you felt, even when you met us, like you felt the energy when it comes to us, like in terms of how everything can just go together. And that's what I feel like I was missing for quite some time, because it was like you could do things with other people, but it's also like you gotta have that natural energy, gotta have that natural vibe. Because if it's not there, then it's like there's going to be weeks where you're like, I don't want to dive into content this week. I just got my ass handed me to a few other leagues that I'm in, especially one that I care about the most. Do I really want to start researching right now? And then it's like you start talking with your people. You start talking, it's like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. I didn't lose that bad. All right.
So what's been the most challenging part of getting into content creation? And
I would say the challenging part for myself is because I really want to give people the best value possible. I want to tell people, hey, look, like we're a small channel, but I'm going to give you everything I got when it comes to when it comes to your DFS, your betting, stuff like that. You got questions around that, I want to be there, be your person to come to. In terms of that, season long, same thing. Like whatever you guys got, whatever questions you got, tag me at 3:00 in the morning. Like, what I'm saying? Just, I might not get to it right away, but I'll get to it. Nice. So the biggest challenge for me is just always be on game. Always try to find your edge. Try to tell my audience that, look, here's the edge that you can provide yourself right now. And then like, look, hey, let me know. And, inbox me, DM me. Hey, like this is what's going on in my league right now. Okay, cool. Here's where I think you may want to go. It's on you at the end of the day, but here are some things I observed over the last, 15 something years of doing this overall. Like, here's what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. So it's like kind of how that goes.
So what's been the most rewarding part of this whole journey?
I mean, literally the most rewarding is literally just getting to a point now where it's second nature now for me. It's literally, it used to be more of just like this, that, but now it's more like, because you're such in a zone all the time, you're so in your narrow-mindedness that you're like, all right, like this is gonna come, this is natural, this is this. Someone asked me a question, all right, boom, all right, this is what I feel is gonna happen, or this is what's gonna happen, or whatever. It may not happen because I could be wrong, and I always leave myself room for that. But here's where I stand. And every time you got to make a stand on certain things. What do you think about this player versus that player? Well, I think X player is going to do this because look at the scheme, look at the coaching, look at what's going on. So it's more about just, it's so second nature for me now that it's like, that's what makes it more rewarding for the space, because now it's like, not only do you get to have fun, but it's more about just, again, now you're feeling in your zone, knowledgeable, telling people what they need to hear, and you're telling them great information versus just like some clickbait stuff or whatever, for people just to check your channel out. Like,
nice. Now, obviously, the fantasy football community has been great. You've connected with a lot of people. How much have these relationships meant to you since you've
oh man,
been
I mean, you're one of them.
Yeah, no, it's
hey,
awesome.
You're one of them. Like, just the kind words that not only you showed me, but a lot of people did. And having these great conversations and, getting into the space of just this community even more is just like not only just rewarding, but it's so satisfying. Because again, sometimes you go, even when you go home, sometimes you're like, okay, back to what I'm doing. But sometimes the energy doesn't always reciprocate versus when you go to the expo, you go to another event where everyone's just so passionate about, what you're doing and saying. Like, I lost my voice, and that's usually not what happens to me. I've never I've only lost my voice maybe a couple of times in my life. And I lost my voice at Expo, so that definitely tells you something. So it's the beauty about this community really is just connecting, and reassuring those bonds over time. And I did a lot of that, and I look forward to doing it more. And I also tell people, hey, get to the expo, because I didn't like last year. I really wanted to go, and just things, timing, schedule wise, it just didn't happen. But I was I'm telling you, as soon as the tickets came out, I think the next week I got them. I was I got that. I had the flight the next month. I was I'm going.
Making it happen. I love it. What was your favorite event at the expo? Or what are your favorite events?
Man, you know what? My favorite really, oh man, Doc, I got a couple. I got at least 5. I'll give you a top 2, because it's 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
1A was, so we had the flag football tournament, and I didn't know if I was playing, because there was basically a free agency team, basically a sub team if someone wasn't going to show up or whatever. But they decided, because we had enough people there, they would mix us in. We called ourselves the alternates.
Yeah.
And good Lord. So how the rules work was literally, if you got the interception on one of the first few plays, it was pretty much all you had to do is complete a pass and the game was over.
Yeah.
First play, interception. Interception for us. The team that would basically shouldn't have been there, the alternates, get the first win, the second win. And then just we were just feeding off each other's energy. It was electric.
That's awesome.
I didn't play as often, because I was I'm not gonna go too hard, whatever. Because it's been a while, honestly, and I was I didn't exactly train for this. So, but we lost. We got 3rd place though, so it was
amazing.
It was from a group of people that didn't know each other at all, that just fed off each other's energy. It was just something that if you were there, you just had to be there, to just really experience it and really to truly understand it, because it was just something just incredible. Like I said, I only knew these people for maybe a half a day, because the guy that ended up being our quarterback, he beat me in cornhole the other night, the night before. And I was you know what? I was oh wait, I was oh yeah, I lost to you in cornhole. All right. You got an arm, you're QB. It's yeah, I can do a little something. I'll see him do it first. So that second game, he rocketed for a score for us. The next game, I was good Lord.
Flag football can be a ton of fun. I mean, there's been some fun stories. There's been some injuries over the years too, actually. So I don't know, how many more expo flag football tournaments are going to be, but those are some special memories. I can imagine that would be quite a rush to form that team together and to make it all that way. I love it.
It was crazy. It was honestly crazy.
Now, you also you've attended a live SFB event. Talk to me about that experience.
Man, Scott Fishbowl is something that you need to. If you're not doing it live, you're doing it wrong. Seriously, you're doing it very wrong if you don't go to something Scott Fishbowl live. Because when I went there, so I didn't do it this year, but last year, it was just an amazing event, because it was a nice little trip away from my house. And again, just going to one of these communities and pockets where it's you can fan out, you can geek out on things that you can get not only advantages, but you can also just have a ton of fun. I was just, each of us were talking smack to each other. It's oh, okay. You're gonna grab this guy? Yeah, I got this guy though. Okay, what you think about it? I got this guy. And the best part about it is that I think for Scott, that year for Scott Fish, I finished as one of the semifinalists with a team that I was okay with, but it was man, I don't know about this team. I ended up having Jaden Reed later and stuff like that. I had a weak Eckler, you know what I'm saying, that year, and Pollard, you know what I'm saying. Pollard was okay that year, but it was still man, these guys aren't turning up like I thought they would. A. Richardson got hurt, so I was basically playing with just Gardner Minshew and It was a rough limp to the end, I'll tell you that much, but it was so fun.
Yeah, you got it's hard. It's hard to get through the SFB tournament, just your own division, because you got some diehards in there. Obviously, you got some people that are really dedicated to fantasy. So tons of fun. Obviously, it's an amazing event when it comes to the charitable aspects of it.
Absolutely.
Can't say enough about SFB. And you're right. If because now there's so many live drafts just all across the country now in multiple countries.
No excuse.
There's no excuse not to get somewhere and experience it, because it's the best for sure. And obviously football, it brings us all together. It brings us to Canton, brings us to SFB. It's a special thing. Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just throw out some questions. Let me know what first comes to mind.
Sure.
What do you enjoy most about what you're doing in the industry right now?
What I love most really is just, connecting with everyone in terms of, what, as far as from a feedback perspective, how I can fine tune my own, things and how I can help other people. That's one of the best things to do because, again, we're always looking for feedback. We're always looking for engagement. I think the best thing about the community is that we're able to do that. What
are your long-term goals in the space?
Long-term goal for me is still TBD. Because again, like I'm always open to new opportunities all the time. And I'm just going how, God's taking me, it's one of those things where, if you set your eyes on something, sure, but you always got to be open to other things for the industry. Like, I hope one day, like, if anything else, like one of my goals is probably to become a sideline reporter for the NFL, like, or literally in the fantasy space, literally just being able to be, on Marcus Grant's level would be nice. Just doing a show every week live in front of, millions of people. That'd be great. So, I mean, eventually becoming my own owner of something fantasy as well. So there's a couple like aspirations for me that I would like to go do, but as far as like a goal, I'm always looking to just be open to any and all opportunities. And if it fits right for me, then we're good.
It's fantastic. Can you name one person in the fantasy industry that you'd love to watch a football game with to hear their perspective on the game?
Well, I got his number now, so it's no excuse. Rich Rebar.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna go hit up Rich Rebar real quick. But are you saying from a NFL professional standpoint?
Yeah.
Or
just anybody in football that you'd love to watch a game.
Jay
Rich
Glazer.
Rebar, that's a perfect answer.
But yeah, Jay Glazer though. He has not he is connected. And everybody, not everybody listens per se, but he usually gives you some great insight, like in terms of, like what 15 minutes before kickoff or whatever, we learned that Keelan Allen was going to be out. I was like, whew, thank you for that information. Put someone else in my receiver position because I was like, oh boy. So I think Jay Glazer would be a great person to eventually have, some type of, one-on-one with, some overall, just watch the game with a little bit and be like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on this? Or, hey, what do you think from a team perspective, how they should go about, the Pittsburgh QB situation or, the Panther situation right now? What are your thoughts on that? So
that'd be great. Something. I love it. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of sports?
Well, sports? No, I'm kidding. I love me some reality TV. I love me some Big Brother, Survivor, The Challenge, Amazing Race. I love those type of shows because it always gets my grind, the competitive spirits, of course, going. But it's always so fascinating from a mental perspective where some people can come from nowhere in certain things and how they may think about other things. And that's how we humans are. It's like we can take something and we can all look at things just a little bit different. And that's what kind of like the reality TV things comes from, because it's like, I'm going to tackle like this. Like, okay, well, this person said they're going to do it like this. Who's going to be the ultimate person that pulls it off?
Yeah, they can definitely be captivating for sure. Do you have an all-time favorite TV show, maybe outside of reality?
Breaking Bad.
Okay. It's a great show.
Breaking Bad. It's it's always something that's dear to my heart because it's a show that it was like around college time, and when it came out, it was like, oh my gosh, you see what just happened this past week? I was like, no, I was preparing for my papers, like the finals. Like, stop what you're doing, go watch it. But Bryan Cranston has always been a guy that I've looked at early on in his career, so to speak. He's kind of seasoned now for sure. But he's always been an actor that, he's the one only actor, not the only actor, but he's one of the few that can really go from one crazy drama or genre to another. So the funny how from Malcolm in the Middle, to Walter White, a Breaking Bad. It's like, what? These guys are completely different. What do you mean? I just saw this guy several years back doing this, and then all of a sudden, so that's that in terms of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't get typecasted, does he?
No.
What's your all-time favorite movie?
Man, that's tough too. Top of my head, since rapid fire, The Matrix.
Okay.
It's definitely a classic. Anytime I've watched it, it's like not that you learn something new, but it's like you always find like something else to be like, huh, I didn't know that. Or come on, really? You really think that? Yeah, that you look at today, you're like, makes you think and wonder, like, come on, really? No, come on.
How about an all-time favorite sports movie?
Oh man, come on. Again, that's like picking between your children, man. Oh, that's tough. That's really tough. But remember the Titans for me.
Okay.
It's literally probably that for sure. But there's can I do it? Can I do another one?
Yeah, let's go.
Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
Friday Night Lights. Because what I did back in the day, I used to do a little Madden franchise mode, and I would just make up some of the characters from those movies and just like plug them in.
That's awesome. I love that. How about a favorite artist or band or musician?
These days I don't want to say it's rough because there's a lot of mumble rappers out there. I mean, honestly, when it comes from newer genre guys, J. Cole for sure. When it comes to like back when I was like youngin per se, because I'm not old, but I'm not young. I mean, 50 Cent usually always one of those like it's just you hear something like, oh, okay, like now you hear it now, but it just takes you back like to like maybe some of your crazier times when you're younger too.
Sure.
But it just reminisce. So, but yeah, those would be nice. Something these days. But new stuff is definitely a little tougher.
Yeah, I get it. It's easy to have that nostalgia when it comes to some music for sure. Now you're a Connecticut guy, right?
I sure am.
Where is that born and raised?
Born and raised. I lived in Massachusetts for a little while too. But Connecticut, born and definitely, pretty much raised. I came back. I went to Mass when I was like second grade, and I came back before high school. So
okay,
I've dipped in both.
What's the best parts of living in Connecticut?
I can't. Okay. I thought you were gonna talk about Massachusetts because I can't stand the Red Sox. Can't stand the Patriots. The Celtics are okay, but at the end of the day, I still don't mess with them like that. Best part about Connecticut literally is just like, I'll be honest, like both places, like where I lived in Mass was pretty quiet, but living in Connecticut is definitely can be really quiet as well. But the best part about living in Connecticut really is your 2-hour drive to Boston, 2-hour drive to New York, and like a 4-hour drive to Philly. So it's you're in like a nice melting pot from like driving to a certain bigger city to check certain things out. So a bigger event's going on or whatever. But then you're also an hour away from Rhode Island. So you get a nice little scenic route, or Cape Cod, you're like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So it's you're in a good distance for a lot of different things depending on what your flavor is.
What's the best vacation you ever been on?
Man, I went on a cruise ship couple years back. So it was, went to St. Lucia. So
nice.
St. Lucia was a spot. We went to a couple of islands too. St. Martin and stuff like that. So that was a very dope place. Next trip I inspired on to being is definitely somewhere over the sea. So somewhere in Europe, Germany, Ireland, something like that.
Okay. Right on.
That's the next trip.
That's your bucket list. I love it. What are you most grateful for at this time?
Being alive. I was a leukemia survivor back in 2015. So, living every day is just like I said. We're living in the now. We're living in the present. It's a gift. So that's why it's called the present. So, and that's where again, like I think there's a lot of things that is happening in our lives on a regular basis, but it's always so important to get back centered and realize that, we're all here for a purpose. And you not only have to be grateful for it, but to me, it's God for me. But for some people, it's whatever. It's not really about that. It's more about just, again, like, not only who do you glorify, but also like, hey, like, what is it that I'm destined here to do? So again, it's being grateful for now, the moment, and taking it one day at a time, and also being so, again, appreciative of that. And to, again, sometimes the little things can compile, but to not let it get over your head, because again, like, you're here, some people
I
are
love
not.
it. That's a great message. That's incredible. Now, can you name just a few people that have just had a huge impact on you along the way in this fantasy football journey you're on?
Man, I mean, for a reaching out to people that have been there, again, it's been like my family has been like just like a good part of that. My girlfriend's been very supportive, like, throughout what I'm doing. That's one person I could really just be like, hey, like, this is going on, or whatever. And she's very understanding all the time. Like, she's not, she's a great cheerleader for me. Even though she could solely like it's like, well, I gotta do this pod and this pod and this pod. You're like, oh, well, when's the time for me? Like, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's football season.
Yeah.
But there's also people in my life, like my family members, my aunt and uncle. Like, there's other people that, like, my personal life, like, I just want to say thank you to, because it's there. But yeah, just life is life.
I love it. No, it's great to have a support system. It's wonderful that you got one. Now, what advice do you have for people that want to get involved in the fantasy content creation?
Do it now. Literally do it now. It's one of those things where you just gotta take your whatever it is that you got, your phone, whatever, you just start doing things on, just saying things on Twitter to people, or you're on Facebook, you make a page. Like, for me, like, how it transitioned for me, like, was more about, like, again, I did sports writing, so it was like, it's obviously more natural. Started with Fantasy Pros as, like, the breaking news, like, correspondent type of thing, where we're just writing up little posts. And that's what I did for a while too. So you got to start somewhere. I would say naturally do it yourself, from a freelance perspective, or just saying, like, hey, like, this is what I'm thinking, and do your research, look at your statistics, like, look at game film. It's like doing things that you probably already would do anyway. But then do it, and then share with other people, get people's feedback, how you could be better. And if anyone ever has that, in terms of, they need to start somewhere, or they need some feedback, critique, whatever, you can absolutely tag me on Twitter at Nick_WILCOX 25. I call it Twitter. It's not X to me. But feel free to reach out to me as well. And I'd love to see what you got going on. Because it's all about that in this space. I think it's so important that, one of the biggest things from the expo is that, everybody's cheering for you. There's not really like a, someone's jealous of somebody or whatever. It's like, there's some people that are doing it way bigger than others, but that doesn't mean you can't be there. So I think it's a natural thing to be like, just like, hey, like, I love to share with you, or hey, you share with me, like, hey, what's up? So, so that being said, yeah, that's where I think that's the beauty of our community industry is.
Yeah. That's great advice for sure. And was there anything we haven't covered before we close things out you want to share?
No, just be like, grateful for life, be able to, take every moment you have and live it to the best of your ability, because, again, like, we only got one of these things called life. We only got one of these bodies. But in terms of just like from a, fantasy football side of things and whatnot, just, hey, just go out and be you. And there's only one of you. So
it's fantastic, man. I enjoyed every second of this. Thank you for coming on here, my man. Looking forward to everything you got ahead of you in 2024, and I look forward to seeing the Expo in 2025.
Hey, Suitor, you never know.
Hey, let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.